I do believe results are still coming in. It does look like Bernie Sanders is going to pull out a victory. Of course, Donald Trump is not running against anyone right now. Bernie Sanders has a 49.3% over Hillary Clinton's 40.9%. So it is another win. Mark that as a win for Bernie Sanders. We'll discuss what that means, and we'll unpack some of the demographics of West Virginia, particularly in the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders getting an unusual boost from more conservative Democrats. So we want to unpack that a little bit tonight. Of course, Donald Trump has won, considering two of the candidates are no longer in the race. Donald Trump, as expected, has a 72% over. He has like a 60-point lead in West Virginia. And Bernie Sanders, again, in West Virginia, is in the lead still at 49.2%. Hillary Clinton's 40.8%. So some convincing numbers coming out of West Virginia. So Donald Trump, it's been called finally for Bernie Sanders at 49.7%. He beat Hillary Clinton, who had 39.6%. So it is a convincing lead, a convincing victory, of 11 points, which goes back of about 11 points, somewhere around 10.6 or something like that. I'm not looking who's counting, but it goes back to something that the last caller said, particularly with regard to not ignoring West Virginia, not ignoring the demographics of West Virginia. And because there was some polling that came out of West Virginia that showed that, of course, the people on the left, the more progressive people, the more liberal people supported Bernie Sanders. In the middle, the moderates supported Hillary Clinton. And then on the right, you had of the Democratic base, the people who are progressive, but on the far right end of the progressive spectrum, they circled back and supported Bernie Sanders. And I was reading in the LA Times, and the LA Times discussed the fact that this support is not necessarily because they believe in democratic socialism or that they're feeling the burn, but more as a repudiation of Hillary Clinton. And they would rather support a democratic socialist, even though it goes against their more economic conservative paradigm. They would rather support a democratic socialist than to support Hillary Clinton. And, you know, that's one theory, the one way of looking at it. I think the more accurate way of looking at it is that you have a lot of poor, disenfranchised people in West Virginia. You have it across the country, but it seems to be concentrated in West Virginia. And people who have been hurt by these neoliberal economic policies, by the foreign, by these trade agreements, by NAFTA, and they're going to be hurt even more by the TPP. And you have a lot of people who understand the unique nature that the lower middle class and those impoverished, the unique position that they are in. I mean, you cannot divorce. And this is what bothers me about the Democratic Party. They want you to divorce your economic reality from any paradigm that stretches further than the one that they are comfortable with. They want you to completely dismiss any narrative of poverty that actually requires you to address poverty. They have co-opted the language of poverty and populism without doing a damn thing to address it. And people are finally catching wind of it. And so Hillary Clinton is the standard bearer of the neoliberal economic Democratic Party. And people are repudiating her, particularly in West Virginia, because they are intimately aware of what it is to be poor, impoverished, or the bottom of the middle class. There are just some distinct differences now. And I don't know. I think there's some irreconcilable differences. I think there's some things that we are not really going to be able to overcome in this big tent that has been held together for a long time based on economic populism. And now people are finally coming to the realization that there is nothing economically populist about the Democratic Party except the language. And so they do the sleight of hand where they convince you that we're for the average American, but they're really only willing to make moves on identity issues. They will fight for gender equality and LGBT rights and marriage equality, rather. They will fight for the transgender community, except those that decide not to fight for it, right? So it's not a blanket statement, but it just goes to show you that their priorities are on more social issues than they are on economic issues, because the economic questions, the underlying economic paradigm that keeps people impoverished structurally. I'm not talking about people who just made bad economic decisions and lost some money. I'm talking about the structural poverty, the structural unemployment. You have the Democratic Party not willing whatsoever to not only to not address it, but to further exacerbate it by policies that we know are going to hurt the middle class. We know it. And because they have bought in so much into this neoliberal, and I'm talking political science wise, this neoliberal perception of trade, right? That we should be willing to endure the downside. This is something I left off last night. We should be willing to endure the negative side effects of globalization for the benefits of globalization. And that would be okay if the benefits of globalization actually were dispersed through the economy equitably. But they are not. The benefits of globalization are concentrated at the top, at the expense of those at the bottom, because there's the forces that want to keep wages as low as possible anyway. And now they have the benefit of seeking out the cheapest labor across the world, artificially depressing the wages here in the United States. This is something that is core to the new democratic ideology. And states like West Virginia are intimately aware with the ramifications of economic decisions like that. And so I think it's not just because Democrats are the more conservative Democrats are just saying no to Hillary. I think they are saying also no to this economic policy paradigm that we've been living underneath since Ronald Reagan, but further forwarded by Democrats. That's what I think is going on.